Yo, y'all got me up here on a weekend talking hip hop, Drake, Kendrick. I mean, for real, right? And on top of that, I got my hat turned to the back. You already know what it is. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Said Nicely. You already know what it is. I mean, yeah, we dropping these episodes, man. We ain't playing no games. But like, for real, I had to do this because the conversation about the Drake and Kendrick beef has been crazy. Everybody got an opinion. I get it. So I figured, fuck it, let me throw mine in the fire. All right. But before I do that, though, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good shit. Appreciate y'all for tapping in with the BLC pod. We're coming back very soon. So stay tuned for that. But back to the beef, though, right? So I might have an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed, right? I think before we talk about the beef, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want from this beef? As spectators, right? I think we can all agree that we do not want any violence, anybody getting hurt. We've been down that road before. We don't want that, right? So what is it really about? It's a song making, right? Meaning that the beat, the rhymes, you know what I mean? The beat with the rhymes, right? The subject matter. Are they spilling tea? Each of us may have our own metrics, but when we're having this conversation about who's winning the beef, I don't think we're having the conversation about how we're judging said competition. So like, for example, for me, I love, rhymes. I love rhymes that are deep, that have a flow to them. I like a lot of the timestamp joints from Drake, right? Because he's giving you the flow kind of reminiscent of that golden era in terms of really just spitting and doing so with a certain level of cadence, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get into all that, right, the main thing I want to say is before we continue the conversation is that I think we have to look at it from that lens, right? So how I'm looking at it may be different than how you're looking at it, and that's okay. So let's go back a little back in time. I believe Drake and J. Cole did First Person Shooter on there. They made a couple of mentions. I mean, really, J. Cole shined on that particular track. I mean, Drake kind of gave you whatever, but I think lyrically from the type of rhymes and the flows, J. Cole's been killing it, right? In terms of the entendres, double, triple, whatever, the cadence. And so for me, that was a standout track for J. Cole. But yes, Drake was on it. Maybe he threw some subs, but like when he switched the beat, it wasn't really much to me in terms of he talking about anything. So then Like That comes out, right? And so Kendrick out of nowhere basically is like, yo, let me go ahead and shoot these niggas. They were both on First Person Shooter. And maybe J. Cole caught a stray, but I think most people agree that it was really about Drake in terms of that particular verse. So then Cole jumps out there a little bit. We already know what happened with Cole. And I did a video about that in regards to how I felt like he did the right thing and no shit on him for doing that, right? And I think now more people are like, oh, yes, he did do the right thing in terms of how personal this particular beef is getting. The main thing is that Cole came out, he dropped a little song on his little mixtape or whatever. And I don't mean little like that, I'm sorry. But he dropped a song on his mixtape and decided that he didn't feel really good about it. He apologized. Cool. So he's out of the way. So now we're like main attraction. I get it that other people kind of jumped in, Rick Ross, et cetera, et cetera. But what this is really about is Kendrick and Drake, both of whom are at the height, right, in the prime of their careers. They're lyrically talented. They have all the tools necessary, right? Money, whatever, right? So what it's going to come down to, for me anyways, is song structure, is the flow. I know that you have some personal animus, but can you give me a little bit more? I know that people are out here looking for all the double and triple entendres, but there's also like a delivery to that, right? Go back and listen to a lot of the J. Cole albums, or at least the features most recently, right? The way he's killing it, that's the type of shit to me is high level in terms of lyrical delivery, the flow. To be able to do that, to make the song palpable for most people, digestible for most people, I think that's a talent that Drake certainly excels at for the most part. But when it comes to like semi-backpackers like me, I think J. Cole's been killing it in that way, right? So let's fast forward now. Drake decided to drop and Give Me 50. You know what I mean? The little Pushups joint, right? Which was cool. Had some little, flows to it or whatever. He was having fun or whatever. He kind of shot back at a couple of people, but honestly, it was cool. I mean, I'm going to just say that it was cool. And so then after that, with all the rumors and the noise about the AI shit, then he drops another joint with the Tupac AI and the Snoop AI. To me, that was cool. The beat was banging or whatever. I think his flow and what he talked about was cool, but it was only one verse. And then you include like a posthumous AI, Tupac on there, and then Snoop. It was too gimmicky for me, to be honest. It was nothing close to the whole back-to-back vibes. It was just kind of like on some old lame internet type of shit, right? So I'm just going to excuse that particular track, right? And then Kendrick Lamar drops Euphoria, So now I think we're cooking, right? So we got Euphoria from Kendrick Lamar dropping. And to me, I'm judging that against, Drake's dropping Give Me 50, for example, right? So I think Drake was baiting Kendrick Lamar to respond. And so Kendrick Lamar did. And I thought it was an amazing response. Multiple beat flips or whatever. I think the intro was dope. I was like, okay, I like what you're doing right here. And then it turns up that beat was fire, and how he rode that beat was fire, like staying in the pocket on the things that he was talking about. I mean, he addressed Drake as a man, as a father. I mean, the shit was fire. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yo, okay. So I got Kendrick up at this point in time because I felt like that song was fire. But then like Friday comes along and then he drops a 616 in LA. And I get that there's all these super deep meanings for 616, et cetera, et cetera. But as a song though, it wasn't touching Euphoria. And I was also wondering, like, why would you step on Euphoria when you just put it out? I mean, honestly, I was underwhelmed. I think had he just, stayed with Euphoria and rolled that out to see what Drake came back with, which I'll get to in a second, that's one thing. But then you step on your own shit by dropping the fucking 616 LA, which, I mean, it was cool. Towards the second half of the song, he kind of gets into it a little bit. Seersuckers and all that. Congratulations. But all right, cool. That wasn't for me necessarily, right? And so then late Friday night, Drake drops. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Family Matter. Drake gets into the initial part of the song where I guess he's being a little playful, and then he switches up and takes it serious, and then is that third verse, right? But I'm gonna be honest, right? The third verse, the third part of that song was fire. Kind of gave you a sing-songy flow, but the shit that he was talking about, right? It hit the song structure. It hit the rhymes, what he was saying, the subject matter, right? The entendres or whatever. I felt like out of the entire beat from Drake's side, that was the best part of his performance. Now, the second half of that song, yeah, he's going in, he's spilling tea, he's, shooting back at people who were shooting at him. And there were some decent parts in there, but the beat was underwhelming. And again, it just really wasn't the best of what I liked from Drake in terms of that first part. Now, the first part, right, the beat was dope, but again, it was kind of lacking. And I get that we're in a culture now where we can just drop these kind of like easy flows for the people who need those easy flows. But for those of us who are expecting the best of these two guys, to me, it was far from the best, right? So long story short, I got Kendrick Lamar up right now, only because I kind of felt like the Euphoria joint, if I'm comparing that to not only, what Drake did with the drop of Give Me 50, or even what Drake did with the second song that he came out with as far as Family Matters, then I'm still going to necessarily give it to Kendrick, right? So if we say Kendrick got it, with Euphoria against dropping Give Me 50, and then Drake comes back, right, round two, right, with the Family Matters, and then here comes Kendrick Lamar, like not even a few hours later, dropping a response, right? Or maybe it was something he had in the tuck, maybe he tweaked it or whatever. But that song to me, once again, I get it. Maybe the subject matter, the things that he was talking about was like, dope, and people can really get into it with the meanings and shit like that. And we cannot pretend like the tea is not a thing, right? So apparently Drake got a little daughter over here, right? And you got Kendrick Lamar, who was supposedly hitting his wife, or maybe she's not even really his wife because he proposed a while back. So there is tea being spilled, right? And I mean, if we're being honest, men and women alike, it's like, oh wow, for real? No, he didn't, right? And that's part of the rap beat. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to, am I getting a good song? It's going to have a replay value. Is it something that I'm going to remember, whether it's lines? Does it change how I look at the other person? There's a lot of things been said about Drake, right? And I think that if people are still saying them, then yes, that can have impact, and maybe it depends on who's saying it. But at the same time, if, for example, you're Kendrick Lamar and you're like the pro-black, good dude, married dude, good morals and all that, right? If that's your position, and then it's found out that you low key or even high key or whatever key was hitting your wife or your girlfriend at the time or involved in anything like that, then yo, bro, like to me, that's a bigger hit. That would probably be akin, and maybe this is what Ken is referring to in some of his songs in regards to Drake being a ladies' man and like low key, he's on some other type of time, right? Both instances would go at the core of how we see those gentlemen. So if those punches can land to where people believe them and are starting to find out more information, then I think that's another way that you can kind of judge a winner. But at the end of the day, based off of the music and our expectations necessarily, I mean, it's not bad. It's not horrible. It's not mid, maybe a 7 out of 10. But I think a lot of people are hyping this shit up beyond measure because of the people who are engaging in it. But you already know what it is. It's your boy, Nick Nice. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow it, all that good shit. You already know what it is. The BLC pod will be back soon. You know what I'm saying? I am Nick Nice. This was Said Nicely. We'll see you next time. Peace.